Imagine waking up in a world without electricity, grocery stores, or medicine. No hospitals, no phones, no GPS. Just you, your instincts, and what your hands can build. That was daily life for medieval peasants and warriors, people who endured war, famine, plagues, and brutal winters. Not because they were lucky, but because they had skills. Skills so clever and efficient, they put our modern survival gear to shame. They didn't carry bug-out bags or prepper kits. Instead, they knew how to read the land, preserve food for months, treat wounds with plants, and turn even the harshest conditions into something livable. Today we're breaking down 10 of the smartest survival tricks that kept medieval people alive, and that could still save your life today. When temperatures dropped, survival meant one thing: knowing how to layer clothing properly. Medieval people didn't have Gore-Tex or thermal base layers, but they had wool, linen, and a deep understanding of insulation. They wore linen underclothes to wick away moisture and thick woolen layers to trap heat, even when wet. Wool can absorb up to 30% of its weight in water and still keep you warm, making it a literal lifesaver in damp, freezing weather. Warriors layered padded garments under armor, called gambesons, which not only absorbed blows but also trapped heat close to the body. Peasants used cloaks, hoods, and fur when available, often lined with plant fiber stuffing like flax or moss for extra insulation. They didn't heat entire buildings, they heated themselves. That philosophy can still serve us today. Dress smart, not heavy. Starting a fire from scratch every day was risky, so medieval people carried fire with them. They used slow-burning materials like punkwood, dried horse dung, or tightly rolled moss, lit at one end and gently smoldering throughout the day. Carried in a ceramic container or horn case, this glowing ember could be blown into flame hours later. Some warriors and travelers also carried char cloth, scorched linen that ignites with the faintest spark, and peasants often dried fungus like amadou from birch trees, turning it into a kind of medieval tinder cloth. Rather than relying on sparks, they preserved flame. That's a survival shift we often forget. Don't just light a fire, keep it alive. No fridges, no coolers, yet they preserved food all winter. How? Fermentation, drying, salting, and cellaring. Peasants fermented cabbage into sauerkraut, turnips into sour mash, and milk into hard cheeses, all rich in vitamins and capable of lasting for months. Warriors salted meat and dried it into jerky over smoke. In cold regions, food was kept in root cellars or buried underground in sealed crocks to maintain stable temperature and moisture. They didn't store food in gadgets. They worked with nature to preserve it. And perhaps most importantly, they didn't eat everything fresh. They planned for scarcity, which in survival is smarter than indulgence. Before compasses were common, navigation relied on natural signs. Warriors tracked the sun's arc and used the stars, especially Polaris, the North Star, to orient themselves. Peasants watched for moss growth on trees, direction of bird migration, and river flow patterns. Some travelers carried pocket sundials, or even used the length of shadows cast by sticks at midday to judge direction and time. Others relied on local folklore. In the morning, the sun is the farmer's guide. In the evening, the shepherd's. It wasn't poetry. It was practiced navigation. Learning to read the land, instead of relying on tools, is what kept people from getting lost. Or worse. A medieval peasant might own just one knife, but it did everything. They used multifunctional tools like a billhook, which could cut wood, butcher animals, serve as a weapon, and even dig. Spoons weren't just for eating. Some were hollowed in the handle to store herbs, flint, or thread. Warriors modified belts with hidden pouches, hooks, and loops to carry critical gear in easy reach. Even their walking sticks doubled as weapons, supports, fishing poles, and fire pokers. The smartest survival trick here? Everything had more than one use. Nothing was wasted. Every object was a system, and it had to earn its place. When sound could get you killed, or misunderstood, medieval people used a silent code system. From hunting gestures to military hand signals, they passed messages without uttering a word. Warriors used shield taps, torch flashes, or banner movements to coordinate in battle. Peasants used whistle tones, stone piles, or carved symbols to mark danger or resources along forest paths. Even herders had a language of calls and rhythms specific to their flocks, and thieves had their own coded signs scratched into doors or fences. In survival, this was more than stealth. It was precision. Today, if phones are gone and radios fail, this ability to communicate silently and visually might be more valuable than we imagine. Medieval people didn't have antibiotics, but they had knowledge passed through generations. They used plantain leaves to draw poison, yarrow to stop bleeding, and willow bark, nature's aspirin, for pain and fever. Garlic was an infection fighter, and honey was used to seal wounds and kill bacteria. Warriors carried healing pouches filled with dried herbs, salves, and moss for dressing cuts. Midwives and monks kept extensive herbals documenting what healed and what harmed. This wasn't guesswork. It was survival science, rooted in trial and error, and it still holds wisdom for modern preppers and homesteaders. You break down in the woods. No tools, no tent. What now? Medieval peasants could build shelters, traps, and storage structures from memory, using only natural materials. They made wattle and daub huts, lean-tos from saplings, and stone windbreaks that lasted for years. Warriors could throw together temporary camp fortifications with logs and sharpened stakes in a day. They knew how to thatch a roof with reeds, build a smoke chimney, and carve pegs to hold joints in place. No nails required. This was more than DIY. It was mental blueprints memorized from youth, a skill set that could mean life or death in remote lands. Candles were a luxury. Firewood was precious. But medieval people didn't just sit in darkness. They used fish oil lamps, tallow candles, and glowing ember carriers to extend their waking hours wisely. But most importantly, they worked with darkness, not against it. Warriors patrolled by moonlight, timed raids by shadow positions, and trained their eyes to see by starlight. Peasants saved labor for dawn and dusk, when temperatures and light were manageable. They used lanterns with reflectors, positioned fire to minimize smoke visibility, and placed thorn bushes or pottery shards at night around camp to hear approaching threats. Survival meant mastering light and its absence. All the tools and skills in the world mean nothing if your mind breaks down. Medieval survival was a mental game. Whether a peasant enduring famine or a warrior surrounded in battle, they trained in resilience. They used rhymes, prayers, rituals, and songs to stay mentally grounded. They practiced stoicism, accepting hardship as normal, not exceptional. They relied heavily on community. Survival was rarely solo. The village, the family, the brotherhood of arms, this network spread burden and increased odds. They also trained children young, because the earlier you internalize survival thinking, the calmer you are in chaos. Modern survival talks about mindset. Medieval people lived it. We often imagine the medieval world as brutish and backward. But when you strip away the modern noise, the gear, the gadgets, the conveniences, you realize something shocking. They were more prepared than we are. They survived because they were adaptable, observant, and resourceful. They turned nature into an ally, not an obstacle. And most importantly, they passed this knowledge down, not through manuals or YouTube tutorials, but by living it every single day. So maybe the smartest survival trick isn't what you pack, it's what you remember. And if we're smart, we'll start remembering the lessons they never forgot. Which of these medieval tricks surprised you the most? Could you see yourself using any of them? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe knowledge is the best survival tool of all, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that bring ancient wisdom back to life. Until next time, stay smart, stay aware, and never underestimate the people who came before you.